Welcome everyone to today's session of Making the Familiar Strange, where we'll be talking about the dreams of Joseph of Nazareth, led by Countryside Spiritual Director Rita Otis. It's a pleasure to have you all joining for this conversation. And Rita and I have been talking about what she was going to do with this session, and I'm very excited. I know that it's going to be a really interesting and engaging conversation. So before we get started, I wanted to review the goals of Making the Familiar Strange in case anybody is not familiar with this program. Our goals are to look at scriptural stories from Abrahamic traditions alongside one another and take on new perspectives by looking at familiar and sometimes unfamiliar stories from new points of view and new perspectives, listening to each other and our presenter about what they're bringing to these stories. So our ground rules at Making the Familiar Strange are to be as respectful as possible, of course, in these conversations, especially when we disagree with one another. We all bring our own different and valid perspectives. Second, challenge your own assumptions. Sometimes something might strike us as odd, and we're encouraged to take a step back and wonder why we react the way we do. If we have any kind of a strong reaction to something, I don't know that happens too often, but you never know when you're hearing different perspectives on something that has been very familiar in the past for at least some people. Third, be sure to speak from your own point of view. I statements are very helpful in these conversations. So we try to avoid speaking on behalf of a larger group of people, our congregation or our religion or anything like that. And then fourth, be open to a new perspective, both the presenter's perspective as a unique perspective and each other's, as we all bring very different backgrounds and experiences when we look at these stories. So I don't have many announcements today, except remember that we have Rita talking about this New Testament story from Matthew's Gospel. And Rita has asked me to keep an eye on the chat for her. When she opens up the conversation for discussion, I will voice whatever comes into the chat, but at those times you are completely welcome and encouraged to unmute yourself as well. So any way that you like to participate, please do. And aside from that, I will hand it over to Rita to introduce herself and to get us started. So go right ahead, Rita. Are you going to start by needing a slide?
Well, very shortly. Yes.
All right. I'll stop sharing for now and resume whenever you need it.
Okay. Well, good morning or afternoon, I guess, or close to. Yes. I've been, Countryside is my church home. I am a spiritual director, but I do my spiritual direction at home. So I'm not on staff at Countryside, but it is my church home, and that's where I'm affiliated. So wanted to mention that first, and want to mention maybe a little bit what spiritual direction is. You know what? I'm going to change my view so I'm not seeing me so much. I feel like I'm talking to myself. Okay. Spiritual direction is being with someone else's sacred story, not leading their story or guiding or directing as much as a witness to someone's story. I got my training for spiritual direction in over 20 years ago at Creighton University. And then since that time, I've added on Tai Chi as a modality that I work with for myself and with others. I've also added on play. I'm an interplay leader, creative play to tap into our spirituality and our creativity. And then also biospiritual focusing, which is probably what I use most with people, helping people. I'm a witness as they feel into their body for God's presence. So that's what I do as spiritual direction. So there's a little bit of background there. I would like to go ahead and start. If you want to, Allie, put that slide up. One of my favorite things to read is Hafiz, the poetry of Hafiz. And the poems that my favorite ones is from his book, I Heard God Laughing, and that's kind of my morning meditation. And I'd like to start with it because Hafiz is my model for spiritual direction, basically, and because it's just a good way to start anything. So you can either read along or you can close your eyes and just listen to the poem. I will read it out loud and just let it wash over you. Do you know how beautiful you are? I think not, my dear. For as you talk of God, I see great parades with wildly colorful bands streaming from your mind and heart, carrying wonderful and secret messages to every corner of this world. Oh, I see saints bowing in the mountains, hundreds of miles away, to the wonder of sound that breaks into light from your most common words. Speak to me of your mother, your cousins, and your friends. Tell me of squirrels and birds you know. Awaken your legion of nightingales. Let them soar wild and free in the sky. And begin to sing to God. Let's all begin to sing to God. Do you know how beautiful you are? I think not, my dear. Yet Hafiz could set you upon a stage and worship you forever. Something about that is just so affirming. And that's what I hope this presentation, you can go ahead and take that off if you like, Allie. Put us back together. Okay. So now I hope as we go on and talking about the first chapter of Matthew, I think we said also first part of the second, but basically it's just going to be the first part of Matthew. And I'm going to give you a little bit of background as to how my thought processes went with this passage. When Allie called me and asked me to consider doing something, this popped into my mind. Not only is it timely with the Christmas time, but also I work with dreams and the unconscious. That's a very important thing to me. So that popped into my mind, and as I looked over it, I kind of came up with three sort of areas that resonated with me. This connection from the old to the new, Old Testament to New Testament, definite connection there. Also this, as I said, this idea of dreams and letting God work through our unconscious, that's very big in my life. And then as I stayed with it longer, I got the passage and I just read it and stayed with it without thinking too much. Joseph just kept coming back to me. And part of that might be, I mean, there's some connection there in the Catholic tradition and in the Christian and maybe in other traditions as well. There's a communion of saints, the people that have gone on before that are still with us in spiritual form. And each day of the year in the Catholic tradition has a different saint. And I happen to be born on St. Joseph's Day, March 19th. So St. Joseph or Joseph has always been a person in my life. So as I stayed with that, I realized how unsung, what an unsung hero he is. Matthew's the only one that has Joseph in it. So I thought, okay, there's something going on there. So those are the three areas that I kind of want to look at today. This first idea, a little bit in the very first part of the text, and you can go ahead and put that up, Allie. The first part where we have the genealogy of Jesus. And then from there, we'll spend a little time here and then we'll go and talk about some dreams and then we'll go on there. So I'm not going to necessarily read this whole thing, but when I read it to myself or started to even think about reading it out loud, it became a rap song. It just does. This is the genealogy of Jesus, the Messiah, the son of David, the son of Abram, Abram, the father of Isaac, Isaac, the father of Jacob, Jacob, the father of Judah and his brothers, Judah, the father of Perez and Zerah, whose mother was Tamar. And I'm not going to go farther. I don't want to spend the whole time doing that, but I'm curious. I want to not finish there. We go down to the bottom. After we go through the whole genealogy, then we get to the bottom, and it says, and the third to last line, Jacob, the father of Joseph, the husband of Mary, and Mary was the mother of Jesus, who is called the Messiah. Thus there were 14 generations in all from Abram to David, 14 from David to the exile to Babylon, and 14 from the exile to the Messiah. What I noticed about that is, again, that connection, blatant connection from Abram to Jesus. And that whole idea with the 14, ooh, there's something going on there. Okay? So I did look up that a little bit, and the numerical meaning of David in Hebrew is a reference to the number 7. And as 14 is twice 7, and the number 7 is for spiritual perfection, is what I've read. And as 14 is twice 7, that means we've got a double measure of virtue going on here. Okay? Then the other thing that became prominent to me was that there's 4 women mentioned. Now, in Matthew's time in writing this, that was a little out of the box to have women be part of the genealogy. So I think that may say something. Ellie, I'm going to go back. Well, let's just go ahead and leave that up there. Is anybody notice anything else that they'd like to add to that? Any quick thoughts?
I'll just say real quick, I mean, you mentioned that connection to the Old Testament. I'm in the process of reading the Bible, and I just am still in the Old Testament, and in Numbers or the Deuteronomy, but a very similar showing of the lineage in the Old Testament is done. And then this, when I was reading this, I was like, oh, okay, this is showing that connection, that fulfillment of the Old Testament, that Jesus is that fulfillment, and just there's that connection. It really drove it home. Same kind of thing in the Old Testament.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. Well, unless there's something else popping up, let's go ahead and go to the next slide with the rest of Matthew's first chapter. This is how the birth of Jesus, the Messiah, came about. His mother Mary was pledged to be married to Joseph, but before they came together, she was found to be pregnant through the Holy Spirit. Because Joseph, her husband, was faithful to the law and yet did not want to expose her to public disgrace, he had in mind to divorce her quietly. But after he had considered this, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream and said, Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid to take Mary home as your wife, because what is conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. She will give birth to a son, and you are to give him the name Jesus, because he will save his people from their sins. All this took place to fulfill what the Lord had said through the prophet. The virgin will conceive and give birth to a son, and they will call him Emmanuel, which means God with us. When Joseph woke up, he did what the angel of the Lord had commanded him and took Mary home as his wife. But he did not consummate their marriage until she gave birth to a son, and he gave him the name Jesus. Now, what I'm noticing there, again, is that fulfillment, that a phrase that all this took place to fulfill what the Lord had said. And there's a passage from Isaiah that is exactly that. The virgin will conceive and give birth. So that harkens back to Isaiah. And then I just kind of mentioned this elephant in the room, the virgin birth. We're not going to delve into that. Just going to go take a little detour all around that, because that is much more than we want to open up today. But another time would be wonderful to do a little more investigating, playing with that. I also want to comment that it's only in Matthew that Joseph really is developed at all. And then the dreams. Right? Now here Joseph gets this dream that says, go ahead and marry Mary. Now he was an older man, she was younger, and he gets this dream, says, okay, I can go ahead and do that. Well, later on in chapter 2, he gets let's see, next dream I think is the Magi, the kings. They come and visit, they see Herod, they come and visit the baby, and then they have and Herod says, oh, you better come back and see me on your way, because, oh yeah, I want to see this king too, ha ha. And they get a dream that says, go another way. Herod does not have good intentions. Then later on, Joseph gets another dream and says, do not go to Egypt, because Herod's coming out and he's killing all the baby boys. So go to Egypt, save the child. While they're in Egypt, there's another dream for Joseph that says to come back. So this idea of the dreams definitely showed up for me. I'll open this up a little bit. Anybody else have some thoughts here that come before we go on?
Well, I love Isaiah, and I think it's just stunning that you can, in the Old Testament with Isaiah, you can read and hear the New Testament story of Christ. And so to see the quote of Isaiah in Matthew, it's really, it again makes that connection. But Isaiah is just an amazing prophet, and I enjoy him whenever I see it, which you see it a lot in the New Testament.
Right, and especially in Matthew, yeah. And I hear your resonance with that, Darren. It's yeah, I can tell that you take delight in it.
Oh yeah.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I would. Am I on? Yes. Hi, Darren. I read that and think often. Now, don't take this as too cynical, but that the writers of the New Testament were making a great PR foundation. And I don't dismiss that as necessarily non-historical or inaccurate. I embrace that as this spiritual presence that they felt so deeply, and they expressed it metaphorically, and they were good Jews, and so they were building a case for what they were experiencing. So that's not to discount anything, but Isaiah wasn't a major prophet. Am I correct about that? I'm not a good Old Testament scholar, but they're beautiful words.
Yeah. Thank you, Deb. Thank you for those thoughts. Yes, it's obviously crafted. It's crafted. That does not make it any less beautiful. That's what I'm hearing you say. Yeah, or any less true, or whatever. Yeah, thank you.
We confuse fact and truth, and I think it's true. I don't necessarily think it's factual.
Yes, very good distinction. Yes. Yes. Any other?
Yes, I have, excuse me. Matthew, the Gospel of Matthew was placed first when the New Testament was put together because Matthew wanted to show to the Jews that Jesus Christ was the Messiah. He came from the Jews. And so this is certainly, this passage, these passages are certainly a fine example of that, is as Isaiah is quoted not once, but several times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you, Nancy. Yeah. Yes, yeah, Matthew does an excellent job of placing Jesus as a Jewish baby. Yeah. Okay. Other quick comments? Ali, you can go ahead and take that off. Bring us back together. Okay. The Bible is full of dreams. As I mentioned, just the first couple chapters of Matthew have lots of dreams, but it's full of dreams. They may not always use the word dreams. It might be a vision, or being in a trance, or being in the spirit. But Genesis is full of all kinds of dreams. That's from the beginning of the Bible and to the end of the Bible with Revelations is, I mean, it's really just even telling you this is a dream. This is revealed to me, the dream. So in preparation for my little talk here, I started reading a book that I read many years ago, actually, when I was going through spiritual direction training. And it's John Sanford's book, God's Forgotten Dreams, God's Forgotten Language. So if you, Ali, want to go ahead and put up that slide. So I was rereading this and this really struck me. The people of the Bible did not first sit down to intellectualize about God. God broke through into them with a personal experience. Only after their experience did they sit down and think about God to give structure to and expand the meaning of their experience. I want to open that a little bit to even ask, what dreams do you remember from your reading of the Bible? What other dreams do you know of? And how does this strike you about the dream is God breaking in, and then we take that with our innate ability to reason and structure and make meaning of the experience. Open that up for you a little.
Hi, this is Irene. I thank you for saying that in Old Testament it's full of dreams, especially Abraham in Genesis. And you mentioned that not just the dream, visions, or even I'm thinking like Isaiah said, God spoke to me, and then it goes on and on. So thank you for connecting those. For me, in Genesis, Abraham waits for God and he sets out all the sacrifices or whatever, the animals and killed. And he sees in his trance, it says that God came through that, like he in lightning or fire cuts through, and Abraham actually experienced God through this. This is while he was waiting for a child that God promised that he'll have, and it's not happening. And Abraham is really doubting God's promise. And this experience or vision or in his trance, he experiences God again personally. So this screen that you put up, that makes me think of Abraham's experience of his trance or vision. but I think even in modern days, we don't focus so much on dreams and so on. But still, I think that people experience God in their personal life. You know, we try to intelligently like interpret those things, but I think unless you really experience God in personal life, it's very difficult to go on the spiritual path.
Oh, those are wonderful comments, Irene. Yes, yes. I'm on that same path with you. Yeah, God is still speaking. And of course, that's UCC, that's part of the motto of the United Church of Christ. God is still speaking. And I think it's also the motto in all of our Abrahamic religions. Let's see, so a couple of the places that popped into my mind, of course, Joseph, not the Joseph that married Mary, but the Joseph of the Old Testament, Joseph and the Pharaoh, remember those? And how about Ezekiel and his fiery wheels? And Daniel, of course, Nebuchadnezzar, the tree. And in the New Testament, a couple obvious, the transfiguration of Jesus when he was with on the mountaintop, and he began to glow, and he was shown as a spiritual being. Okay? And then St. Paul knocked him right off the horse there, or donkey or whatever it was. And then even Pontius Pilate's wife had this dream that, don't be messing with this man. I had a dream and it's not going to go well. So does that ring a bell for anybody? Anybody else want to comment on any of those?
Joseph in the Old Testament is an amazing character, and he is a dream interpreter, and that's how it saves his life. A great story. And so Rita, you mentioned something about dream in your background. So it'd be interesting, and we don't have to do it now, but I'm sure maybe you want to be a Joseph in your own life, to be a dream interpreter.
Well, in some ways I am, and we are going to go on to that a little bit here. But I wouldn't say I'm really an interpreter, because everybody really interprets their own dreams. It's somebody else. As a spiritual director, I definitely help people with their dreams.
Okay.
But it's not me telling them what those symbols mean.
Like Joseph.
It's giving them time to rest with the symbol and let it speak further, because if it showed up, it's got something to say to you. Yeah. Let's go back and take that slide off, because I do want to talk and just say that dreams are still talking to us. Irene, as you mentioned, if you're still here, maybe you're not on screen, that we're still in communication with God, and dreams are one of the ways, and not the only way, but dreams are one of them. I want to say, first of all, that we all dream. I think that's been scientifically proven enough now that you can't say that you don't dream. You can say that you don't remember your dreams, and that might be very true for you, but we all dream. And it's also been shown that if you are not allowed to dream, they've done the experiments, waking up people because they can tell when a person's dreaming by their eye movement, waking up people and not allowing them to dream causes a psychosis. So the dreams are important. They somehow balance our psyche. And and from my own experience and my own reading, the dreams are part of our unconscious, our conscious and our collective unconscious, the all collective unconscious, everything that ever happened. They are, dreams are that little portal, that little window into there when we're ready for it. So let's see. I'm going to have you go ahead and put up that next slide, because some of the things from my own experience and my study of dreams that I've noticed myself. First of all, every dream is about the dreamer, and every part of the dream is probably a part of the dreamer. It may be something that is very unconscious, in fact, probably is unconscious. Otherwise, it wouldn't come out and be so prominent for you. Secondly, the dreams come from our unconscious and the collective unconscious, and they come for our good. What I mean by that is that they come to help make us whole. They come to help us live into our destiny, to individuate, to become who we're supposed to be. Okay? And the dreams, whether they're often showing us some side of us that we don't know about and wants to be recognized so that our personalities can be can be broader. Okay? Instead of always being a goody two-shoes, you may have a dream about somebody who's doing lots of bad things. Well, it doesn't mean that you're going to do bad things, but you may be denying the fact that, oh, I do some things that I'm not proud of too. Okay, so just somehow the unconscious and the collective unconscious is coming to tell us more of who we are for our good. Okay? And we can welcome dreams. If you don't feel like you have a lot of dreams, you just need to start honoring them. And you can do that by writing them down. But even if you don't write them down, just spend a moment in the morning, just staying in bed or whatever, and just opening up to, did I have a dream? What was there? And the dream may just be some color, or it just may be a word, or it may not be a whole storyline. It can be lots of different things. Okay. See what else I want to say about that. And you can go to the extent then of painting, doing artistic work. You can do all kinds of things with your dream. Sharing them with somebody else is a wonderful way to honor the dream, as long as it's shared with somebody that doesn't try to pick it apart. Because dreams are much like the butterfly coming out of the cocoon. You try to pick it apart too much and it will not come out. You're just pinning it to the wall. They have to remain with some fluidity there, some nebulousness. Okay. I want to, you can leave that up there, I guess, if you want. I mentioned that I do a lot of work with my own dreams, and just this whole idea of our unconscious working and God working through our unconscious to make us whole. In the light of that, I thought I'd share a little bit of a dream that I had. It was actually a week ago. In my dream, I was asked to hold a kitten in a blanket to help it heal from neglect. It did respond to my touch. I was holding it very, very dear, and it was coming back to life. And then I was asked to take the kitten home. And I considered, but I declined because my husband, Don, was allergic to cats. It's, in some ways, there's some obvious things going on there about my own personal self-care. And what I wrote there afterwards was, just remember this is a dream. I can take the kitten home. I can take that neglected part of myself home. And but my sense of responsibility is appropriate in real life, in conscious life. But how is it not the right thing for me in my love of self? How am I sabotaging my self-love? So those are the workings that I did with that. And I'm not going to go any farther with that, but it gives you a little idea, I think, of how the dream that comes for my wholeness, for telling me that I need more self-care in my life at that time. I'm going to go to the next slide and then open that up a little bit and see what anybody else has to say. Okay. This is again from Dreams, God's Forgotten Language, John Sanford. When consciousness is at war, I'm sorry, I typed that wrong. When consciousness is at war with what is unconscious, when there is conflict because these 2 points of view have separated too far, then there's discord in the personality. But when the conscious and unconscious points of view are brought closer together and a relationship or harmony is established, then there emerges a possibility for the wholeness that God has destined for each of us. So I'm going to open that up to what anybody might think on that. What's coming to you? And let's go back to the group instead of that. Does any of that ring true to you, for you?
I immediately went to the macro rather than the micro, going, is that what explains the chaos that's going on right now?
Yes.
In fear and rejection of long held values. I don't know.
Oh, yes, that gave me the shivers when you said that, Deb. That yes, this it's the consciousness of all of us, not just the personal. Mhm. Ooh, exciting thought. Thank you.
Depressing thought.
Well, except it's all for our good.
Maybe so.
It really is. It's not always obvious it's for our good. Even if we're getting nightmares or something, it's not obvious that that's for our good, but it is. Other thoughts?
I think it's intriguing. I mean, the comment about the consciousness and unconsciousness coming closer together, less of a gap, being the most true version of yourself. I think that's very, I like that idea. But to your other thought or prior about the dreams, and I was already thinking, oh, wow, I could think of my dreams differently about what they're saying about my unconscious, and then that could help me bridge that gap.
Mm-hmm. That's dream work.
Yeah. So that's fascinating. I'm gonna take that away and see if that's doable. And looking at your dreams differently as, okay, that's your unconscious speaking. Okay. And then this consciousness and unconsciousness and trying to bridge that gap. I think that's really fascinating.
Isn't it though? I know, I think it is too. What enters into that is our shadow side. And this is a Jungian term. It's the side we don't want to see. It's the part of ourselves we don't want to see. And that shows up in our dream. And we don't usually like that part of ourselves. We usually hide it from ourselves pretty good. But it makes us a much more full person when we can start embracing the shadow sides. Makes us be open to other people in a whole new way. Speaking of being open to other people too, other people can trigger us. They trigger the unconscious part of us. And if you pay attention to that, it can be a mirror.
I want to kind of think more about the word unconscious. And when I think of unconscious, I think of something hidden or that I'm just not aware of.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how you think of unconscious.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, where our conscious reality is what we see around us and know to be true. What the unconscious is, we're just not aware of it. It's also true, but we're not aware of it. It's true about us and about how we are in the world. And when I talk about the dreams and bringing the unconscious and the conscious together, that to me is big part of what the spiritual path is bringing the unconscious and the conscious together.
Uh-huh.
And now I don't remember what I was going to say about that, but that is the spiritual path. And we're not alone in it. Maybe that's part of it. Not just because other people are around and other people are interacting with us. Spirit is there. God is there, or however, divine mystery, whatever terms you want to use, is active in that. The symbols that come in the dreams are active. They're an active part of ourselves. The one thing I want to mention too is that as I've worked more with my dreams, I didn't used to really dream in color. How many of you dream in color? Great. Give me a hand if you rate me. I didn't, mine were usually kind of, ugh. I mean, there may be some color, but was not vibrant. And lately they've been much more vibrant, and I think that is really exciting. Any of you do dream work in a more specific way?
I've had a spiritual director who teaches dream workshop every year, and once I took it, I had a dream journal and I write them down and always brought it to her, and she would interpret for me because I didn't have the ability to do it. But especially nightmares that were just so scary, she would lead me to imagery prayer, continuation of that dream. And I'm from a Christian background, so we would invite Jesus walk in with me. So there's a safe place, you feel protected and safe. So, but I refused to go in there in the beginning because it was just so scary. But once we started doing it, this scary figure would just engage in a talk. If not, Jesus would ask question and give really insight into my own unconscious. So the unconscious became consciousness. And then from there, I knew what I need to do in my life. Like, sometimes no action is needed. It's just the awareness of it really helped me to, the unconscious that is hidden in nightmare has come up to the consciousness, and I'm very aware of, this is how I feel, or I'm afraid of this, or, and I've done it for many years. Now I don't dream very much. I just noticed past few months, I don't dream much anymore. So.
The dreams come when we need them and when we invite them, and when they're needed. Yes. Oh, thank you for sharing that, Irene. It's that level of sharing is intimate and beautiful. And I thank you for bringing that to this group today. Thank you. Yeah. Well, I want to, I mentioned as the three parts, kind of the old to new, and then this whole idea of dreams, and then this thing with Joseph and May being born on St. Joseph's Day. And I knew that kind of popped up from my unconscious. So I thought as we kind of come into a kind of a closing and rounding out here, mention a little bit more about that. What popped into my unconscious was my grandfather. And my grandfather, I grew up on a farm, and my grandfather was from Czechoslovakia. He never learned English, and he was considered off, a little crazy. In fact, he was committed at a time. I know that he had gifts that were just not appreciated in those times, in the 1940s, 50s, 60s. but he popped into my mind. And so I'm going to invite you now to maybe do a little bit of a meditation and see what might pop into your mind. Okay? And if this doesn't feel right for you, then just you can sign off or just do what you need to do. And if you feel more comfortable, not, well, do as you wish with this, whatever feels good for you. Okay. So I'm going to ask you to just close your eyes, and we'll kind of come into your own body. Just notice that you are breathing. Notice the air coming in and going out. Notice the chair you're sitting on, how you're in contact with the chair. Now, just a little body scan. Notice your cheeks and the top of your head, your jaw, your right shoulder, down your right arm to your fingers. Notice your whole right arm, just how it feels. Now notice your left shoulder, your left fingers, your whole left arm. Now just feel into both arms. Feel into your right hip, right knee, right foot, the whole right foot, the left hip, left knee, left foot, the whole left foot. Now both feet, both legs, both arms, and your torso. Just feel into that and be present to yourself. Now, in this place of presence, name the person, ask yourself, who in my life, past or present, is an unsung hero? Or you can ask God to show you who is an unsung hero. Then sit back and be with what comes. Now go ahead and thank that person for coming to you. Thank God for being with you in this meditation time. And then, as you like, come back to our space. Now, what I'd like you to do is, if someone came to you, or if somebody pops in your mind right now, let's go ahead and name that person. And you can just say that person out loud. You don't have to say anything more, but just to honor that person in your life and let them be in this space as well. So go ahead as you wish if you want to name someone. You can unmute and name.
My grandmother.
Ray.
Coach McGrain.
Jamie.
We welcome all those and any other still unsung here, unspoken heroes. Thank you for that. Thank you for expanding our group and expanding our hearts and expanding our knowledge and opening up to that little bit of that little bit of unconsciousness that you were willing to share here. Thank you. Anything else that anybody else would like to add or ask questions? I thank you for being with me today. And I thank you for letting me explore.
It looks like we just had something come through in the chat from Sue Stein, and then we had another question in the chat that was put in right at the beginning of the program that this would be a good time for. But since we do have 5 minutes left, in case anybody will need to sign off, I also wanted to say thank you so much to everyone for coming and participating in this session today over the noon hour. And thank you so much to Rita for saying yes to doing this program, for your preparations, and for sharing your beautiful perspective and sharing all of your gifts with us in this hour. It has been wonderful to get to hear from you and to get to hear the other perspectives of the others in this call who were comfortable sharing those. So yeah, just a big thank you to everybody. Back to what's been shared in the chat now. Sue Stein says, to me, Christ, given his nature, would not have a conscious/unconscious split. I think that the closest to a dream that Christ had as we know it is in the Garden of Olives when he, quote unquote, sees his passion coming. So his was a life experience of wholeness that we miss but aspire to.
Oh, that is beautiful, just beautiful. And I agree with you that the people or beings that can bring the unconscious and conscious together, or that for some reason it has come together through prayer practice or just innate ability, these are our ascended masters, or these are the spiritual masters.
And so at the beginning of the program, taking a little bit of a turn from today's themes, it looks like there was a question from Carrie Dietz-Pillen, who says, I was given a book that makes a strong argument that Mary was a prostitute. Have you seen this line of reason? And a quick clarifying question, if Carrie is still on this call, I haven't checked. It looks like it, yes. Is that Mary of the mother of Jesus, or Mary Magdalene?
Yes, Mary, the mother of Jesus. And, you know, I apologize because at the beginning of the talk, I didn't know it would be so dream-centered and less story of the nativity centered. But, you know, since you're game to ask the question, go ahead and see if our speaker or anybody else has anything to say about it.
Well, some immediate thoughts come to my mind is, no, it's not something that I've ever really read Mary Magdalene more, but not Mary, the mother of Jesus, so much. She's my sense is that in the Bible and the Christianity that was developing in that day needed a very pure woman. And Mary fulfills that Madonna, pure woman archetype. But I've never, and she was, actually Mary obviously was a living person. What she was really like, whether she was that pure or whether the new religion just needed, or religion needed a really pure woman, who's to say? But my guess is that she was a mother and a wife, and she got mad at times, and she was like any other mother and wife and woman.
She knew enough to tell Jesus what to do at the wedding at Canaan.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Wise woman.
All right. Well, yeah, a fun question and note to end on there, bringing Mary into it a little bit and the different perspectives on Mary, as we have been focusing on the Joseph side of it in this, who is kind of the unsung hero of that story. So thank you, Carrie, for that question. Thank you, everyone, for being part of this. We're at 12:59, and I would say, if anybody has other questions or would like to thank Rita, you're welcome to stay on the call another minute, but I will otherwise end the recording and bid everyone farewell. Oh, did I hear Abdul?
Yeah, I just want to, say that, great presentation, really good presentation, but I come from a perspective that, depicts the Virgin Mary as the Virgin Mary, pure, selected by God, not married. So I come from, an orientation that is totally, opposite to how she is, portrayed. But, I welcome, the presentation, I learned a different perspective. So, I respect that perspective. And I just want to say, thank you, Rita. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for voicing your perspective too. I think that's a good thing, to.
Thanks.
Awesome. Well, thank you all. I'll end the recording here, and I hope that everybody has a great rest of the afternoon and a great day, and stay safe with the wind coming up.
Thank you very much.